In this lesson, we'll look at some power plant abnormal conditions. We'll continue in Abnormal Operation Lesson 2. Pay close attention to checklists. You often have more time than you think. The first abnormal condition is an aborted engine start. We'll use number 2 as an example. The FADEC will abort the start if there is no light up within 16 seconds of selecting fuel on, or a hot start, ITT exceeds 920 degrees, or a hung or slow start, NH fails to reach 50% within 70 seconds of selecting start. If NH fails to reach 64% within 70 seconds of selecting fuel on, or if anything looks unusual, you should abort the start. To abort an engine start, the procedure is to select fuel off and starter off. Then motor the engine with the ignition off for an additional 15 seconds to clear any internally trapped fuel. Touch the condition lever for the affected engine. The start light will go out. Now switch off the starter. Touch the select switch. No, the select switch. Make sure that the select segment goes out. Now you should motor the engine. Firstly, turn off its ignition. Touch the ignition switch for engine number 2. Touch the select switch for engine number 2. Now press the start select switch light to power the starter circuits. Touch the start switch. Keep to the starter cranking limits. Then you switch off the starter again. When an engine fails in flight, your first actions should be to shut it down by setting the power lever on the affected engine to flight idle and the condition lever to fuel off. If the PEC does not automatically feather the prop on the affected engine, then use alternate feather. Touch alternate feather switch number 2. After feathering, the next step is to pull the pull fuel hydraulic off handle on the fire panel. Pulling the handle will close the fuel emergency shutoff valve. Touch the handle. You should also make sure that the tank auxiliary fuel pump on the affected engine is off. The engine is now isolated from fuel and hydraulic fluid. If the reason for shutdown was an engine fire, then the extinguisher bottles will be armed. Continue by releasing the forward and possibly the aft fire bottles. If the engine out occurred during takeoff, check for activation of the Automatic Takeoff Power Control System, ATPCS, more commonly known as uptrim, and check that the prop on the failed engine feathers. If it does not, use alternate feather. Switch auto feather off and continue with the engine failure checklist. Standard operating procedure is to operate both power levers together and switch off ignition on the affected engine. You can attempt to restart a failed engine in flight if you are within the air start envelope, but never try to restart an engine that was shut down due to engine fire. To restart the engine, push in the pull fuel hydraulic off handle. Touch the handle. Set the ignition back to norm. Touch number 2 ignition and conduct a normal engine start. Finally, advisory messages at the bottom of the engine display. These are for several systems, not just the power plant. More than one message can appear at once. FADEC indicates problems with one of the channels. This indicates a problem with the display unit. Remember that power plant is a no-go item. If you see advisories, inform maintenance as soon as possible.